Hey, 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 it's Fat Tim and Hot Stuff coming you at live at Saturday night. I'm Dasha, I'm here with Marissa, and we've got a co-star named Lacey.
A guest star. Hi, Lacey. We're going to be talking about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is a new Harry Potter movie that came out last week, I think.
Yeah, last week.
We're going to be comparing it to previous Harry Potter movies. We're going to talk a bit about the plot and the actors. And what else are we doing?
We're talking about our favorite character and our favorite scene.
And creatures.
Oh yeah, creature. Favorite creature. That's a character.
Okay.
More specifically, we're talking about our favorite creature.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right, so the main plot of the movie is this character named Newt. He's very into mythical creatures and beasts. And
magical creatures. They are real.
Yeah, magical.
Just magical.
Magical. And he carries around this suitcase that's bigger on the inside, and that's where he keeps all of his creatures. It's bigger on the inside. It's like this whole building.
Doctor Who reference?
Yeah, Doctor Who reference. And he has different environments in there for each of his creatures, and he finds this bird-looking thing keeping up with all the names
Griffin
of the
kind of thing.
Griffin, yeah.
But not. It's an American griffin.
Yeah, it looks
guess.
like a bald eagle, which is an interesting parallel. But anyway, he finds this creature somewhere in Egypt, and he wants to bring it back to its natural habitat, which is in Arizona. And he, first he comes to Ellis Island in New York, and he runs into a lot of trouble. So he gets in trouble with the
MACUSA, the Magical Congress of the United States of America. As opposed to the Ministry of Magic in Britain, which I thought was
And he gets in trouble because
clever.
his creatures start escaping from the suitcase because he's not very great at the whole keeping the creatures inside the suitcase part. And he gets a muggle, which is someone who doesn't know who doesn't have magic, or a no-mage, as they say in America. And he gets into trouble. He ends up at the, what is it called? MACUSA. I'm not going to remember that. He ends up in MACUSA, and he ends up, getting arrested by an Auror, which is essentially a police officer.
But she was an ousted Auror. She got fired for punching a no-mage in a face because she was abusing her son.
Yeah.
Which is an important part of the plot.
So he didn't legally get in trouble with the magical police department, but he still got into trouble, and he ended up staying with the Auror, and he had and then he had to find all of his missing creatures, and it's an adventure.
The movie is set, unlike the other Harry Potter movies, in obviously New York, but in 1926.
Yeah, it's set in 1926, and what makes the plot interesting, because obviously we've got to have a problem, and the problem is that there's what is it called? An obscurist somewhere in New York, and no one can find it. And an
obscurist is a child who represses their magic for too long and just turns into this black cloud of destructive force.
Yeah.
Same.
It's very destructive.
Lacey, your first word so far.
Yeah, it's starting to make New York look like it's been bombed. It's very destructive, and
so obviously the Muggles themselves are not happy about this, so they create an organization called the New Salemers, which want to find and kill all the witches.
Because they think it's a witch.
However, the kid we were talking about earlier that the Auror got in trouble for protecting is the obscurist, but
spoilers. Yeah.
He's a part of the New Salemers, and there are people in the ministry trying to work with him in order to bring down the organization, find the obscurists, protect the wizards, and it goes very, very wrong.
And the wizards are very concerned about this obscurist because they don't want humans finding out about them, or muggles finding out about them. They don't want to be exposed. So that's their greatest concern. So they're trying to find this kid with this awful power, and that's destroying everything in order to protect themselves, protect the muggles, and to keep them from getting exposed.
And at the same time, Newt is running around the city chasing all these wild magical creatures that are causing extra destruction.
So he's blamed for part of it because they didn't know what it was at first, and they thought that it was one of his creatures. So they take his suitcase, they steal his creatures, they
sentence them to death.
Yeah, essentially they sentence him to death. But he escapes it because he still has creatures on his pocket, and he has this one creature that's a lockpick. It's essentially a lockpick.
What is it called? It was like a little twig. It was adorable.
It was like a little twig. So he escapes, and one of his other friends takes the suitcase, and they run away, and then they try to stop the Obscurus. The Obscurus ends up dying, and it's really dramatic. And
I was
then,
really upset by that.
yeah.
I like
'Cause-
the historical reference though with the New Salemers.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I thought it was really real for a Harry Potter movie because the original Harry Potter movies were very lighthearted, the earlier ones especially because
And they felt very fantastical. This one felt a little more real.
because at the very end there's a character called Kowalski who steals the suitcase from Newt originally, which is why the animals get out in the first place.
Well, he
so
mixed it up.
he's been accompanying them on this whole journey, and in the end they had to erase his memory because
He's
it's
a
illegal
muggle.
to fraternize with muggles in America. And you get the idea if you've watched all the other Harry Potter movies that they would somehow rescue him from this and be able to stay together, but they weren't.
Yeah. But in the end, it's sort of like a peak that he opens up a bakery and he has a few creatures, so he might still have his memory, but it was just very great because it felt very mature. So, what was your favorite creature?
Niffler.
Niffler. He was
Niffler.
also mine. He was
Oops,
just
we've got to think of
adorable.
someone else. Okay. You want to talk about the Niffler, and I'll talk about the Griffin.
All right. I really liked the Niffler because he was just adorable, and he looked like a plush toy, and he's really
He looked like
attractive.
a little mole.
Yeah, and he seemed to be the most helpful because he really likes shiny things, and he's very good at stealing them and hiding them. So
Same.
that would make anyone very rich. So I appreciate that.
Lacey.
Yeah. So what about the Griffin?
The Griffin, as mentioned, was found in Egypt being trafficked, I think. That has the ability to change the weather in accordance to its mood, and they use it a lot in the movie to show when things are about to happen, because it will start thundering and raining out of nowhere. And at the very end, after the city is entirely destroyed and wizardkind is pretty much outed forever, they use the Griffin to make it rain a special venom
Serum,
from the
yeah.
sky that will make everybody forget, including Kowalski.
Because they
which-
don't want anyone to find out about magic, so they have to make everyone forget. I'm just
I
reiterating.
thought, and it was very well done.
Yeah.
The creatures were actually some of the few things that were actually done with computer effects. Most of the sets were actually like really built and done. Yeah, isn't it?
That's a lot. Like
It was
building
a
the-
huge budget movie.
Wow. Building all of New York is a big price. That is, oh man. Jeez. That's a lot. I really, did it hit your heartstrings when Kowalski had to stand under the rain that made him forget everything that happened?
He was real cool about it too. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna open a bakery. I'll see y'all never. Bye.
Yeah, I really liked it because, if it was kids, if the main characters were kids, it probably would have gone.
They
a
would have
little-
fought the system, right?
Yeah, they would have fought the system. They probably would have been very upset and not been able to handle all the stress. And Newt just sort of went for it. He's like, there's an Obscurus. This is dangerous. I'm gonna go fight it. I'm gonna go straight to the source.
There was a lot of character development for him in that moment too, because he had sort of been portrayed as the dorky sidekick character, being the one who didn't know much what he was getting into. He made a lot of mistakes. He got the big rhinoceros beast in Central Park to follow him around because he spilled pheromones all over himself, which was an interesting scene involving tree climbing, tree exploding, and ice skating, and a mating dance. But towards the end, he sort of came into his new role, right, Yeah,
he sort of grew up to his part. He was sort of shy and not really shy, but sort of didn't really know what he was doing. And by the end, he felt more confident with himself and filled his shoes, filled up to the reached his
to the point where
expectations.
he was okay with letting it go.
Yeah.
There's so much mental building that an actor has to go through in order to really make a role
Yeah.
feel real,
Yeah. And he had a lot of mental building and just in his body language. In the beginning he felt very shaky and upset about everything, especially in the bank scene. Like, he's very concerned and worried, like, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. But by the end, he didn't really care what was going on. He just knew that he was part of something. He was part of an adventure.
And he had fallen in love with Queenie by this point as well.
Oh, man, that was...
He grew up entirely in the space of a day.
Yeah, that was... Oh, man, all that happened in a day.
I love him.
Yeah.
He was probably one of my favorite characters, and Queenie as well.
Yeah, Queenie is probably you as a witch.
She said, too lazy, not me.
Yeah, too lazy. Yeah, Queenie is a character that can read minds, and she's very attractive. She's, sort of a flapper, and she can read minds, which is a huge advantage when trying to get a love interest, especially when Kowalski comes into play. And he's very sweet about it. He doesn't find it weird or strange. He just, once in a while, he might say, "I don't want you to read my mind. I want,"
Same.
but not in a way that's like it's making me uncomfortable, but in a way like I want to talk. Like, it's great that you could read my mind, but I want to move my lips somewhere, okay? And it's it's incredibly interesting how that develops, because with reading minds, I can see how it can get very upsetting when people say, "Can you please stop doing that?" Because she can't help it. It's something that
Newt
she's
did
born
that to
with.
her a lot. Newt
Yeah.
is
The main.
sort of showed to have a very dark backstory, but we don't get that.
Yeah.
We hear a couple things.
He's an emo soul, but he still manages to, save the entire wizarding world, which is, I think, appeals to teens because everyone's depressed. And so is Newt, but he manages to save all of
One of the biggest
wizarding
themes
world.
in the movie actually was child abuse, which I was
Yeah.
kind of shocked by. You had one of the few things we know about Newt's backstory is that he was in Egypt, he met another obscurist, a little girl who was punished for her magic and forced to repress it, and that's why she became what she did.
And wasn't she put into jail?
And she
too?
died when she was 8 years old because that kind of thing puts a lot of stress on your body, obviously.
Yeah, and the obscurus in New York is abused by his foster mom, by his
The leader of the New Salemers.
Yeah, the leader of the New Salemers, and she physically abuses, emotionally, obviously, because, he has magic. He doesn't tell her about it, but he obviously suppresses it because he doesn't want to get in trouble, and she physically abuses him with his own belt,
Yeah.
which I found very intriguing. And she would say things like, "I'm not your mom," before she would do that, which really hit me. That, she adopted all these
Yeah,
kids,
she
but
hit
she
him
does
too.
not. Yeah, she adopted all these kids, but she does not consider them her kids.
She considers them kind of like her little army to spread the word of her cause, right?
Which is a little psychopathic, like getting kids.
We're not supposed to like her.
Yeah, but as a person, if things like this happen, not all the time, but they happen, and that's a very real thing where adults try to use kids in order to spread their message, and that's just very psychopathic.
It's like how the Westboro Baptist Church people make a lot of babies because that's the only people that would listen to them. It's true.
What?
It's true. Relating it to real life. People, very religious people, especially like the Westboro Baptist Church, they refuse to limit how many children that they have because they're born into the same belief system that they already have.
Oh, you can't
to
convert.
build
Yeah.
their army.
Oh, so
Basically.
they just have a lot of kids to have more people in their support group.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, they'll just die out and shrink, and what they believe will just
Yeah.
fade away. So.
Yeah, like the Shakers. This is off topic, but there was a religious group, sort of like the Quakers, except they were so great at abstaining that they did not reproduce at all. So eventually they just died off.
Okay, do you remember what I was talking about before we started recording, that we should stay on topic and not go
Yeah.
on bunny trails? This is what I meant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, the movie was much more adult and mature and very real life than the traditional Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, talking about more mature topics.
Mm-hmm.
Because Harry Potter mostly talked about, stress, dealing with anger, dealing with everything going on in the
Dealing
world.
with evil villains who murder your entire family, but this was a lot more real. It had a lot of very realistic antagonists.
Like,
The-
child abuse is a real thing.
The government played a big role as far as the antagonists of the movie, although they were always just trying to do the right thing. There weren't any people, well, there was, but Grindelwald, he showed up in the last 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
no one really had.
But it wasn't like
Any
let's
evil
go
intentions.
against the system. It
Yeah.
was let's go against
Let's
the
do
source.
our best and just try to have the best life that we can.
Yeah, which I think is a better message to send to kids. To do your best. You don't have to like defeat the entire world. You just do what you can, and you'll end up doing great things regardless.
Also, if you're special, don't repress it, or else you'll end up almost killing everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Lacey.
and yourself. Yeah. Which,
On that note, rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10.
I think it was a 10.
11. I loved it a lot.
I haven't seen it.
You should. Are you convinced? Do you want to go see it?
Sure.
All right.
Give it a 6.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.